Long before the house in the woods became a nightmare, I genuinely believed Mark and I were getting a fresh start. 3 years into our marriage, we had become strangers, passing each other in airports and hotel lobbies. Me traveling constantly for work, him working remote consulting jobs that left him alone more often than not. When he suggested we move somewhere quiet, somewhere with room to breathe, I agreed because it felt like the least we could do to save what was left between us. He handled everything: tours, paperwork, negotiations. I didn't see the place until the day the moving truck pulled up, but the photos were charming enough. Cedar siding, a long wraparound porch, tall pines circling the backyard like sentries. The house looked like something from a postcard, the kind of place where people bake pies and hang Christmas wreaths. But something about the interior felt off. On the second floor, a narrow hallway stretched nearly 20 feet before ending in a blank wall. From the outside, though, you could clearly see a window right where that wall should have opened into a room. When I pointed this out to Mark, he barely glanced up from a box he was unpacking. "The realtor said it's a facade," he said. "Some builders do that for symmetry." Maybe he was right, but the answer felt rehearsed. The first night after we unpacked just enough to function, we collapsed into bed. I was too exhausted to think about the odd layout. But around 2 in the morning, a soft tapping filled the hallway. Light, hesitant, rhythmic. Tap, tap, tap. I sat up. "Mark, do you hear that?" He rolled over and clicked on the TV. "Old house settling. Go back to sleep." But the tapping grew louder, sharper, as if coming from inside the wall. And that was the moment the house stopped feeling like a fresh start and started feeling like a warning. The tapping kept happening every night between 2 and 3 in the morning, so consistently it felt deliberate. Mark brushed it off, sometimes too quickly, as if he was prepared for the question. "Old wood contracts at night," he'd say. "Probably a raccoon. You're overworked. Try to sleep." But whenever the tapping began, Mark would turn the TV up loud, slide closer to me, wrap an arm around my shoulders, and talk about anything he could to drown the sound out. At first, I took it as comfort. Later, I wondered if it was distraction. Then the small things began. A bowl of fruit vanished overnight. Every apple, every banana. A full bottle of my shampoo emptied in 2 days. My makeup bag moved from the bathroom to the hallway one afternoon while I was at work. When I mentioned it, Mark shrugged. "You must have put it there." Except I hadn't. Some nights I woke to faint footsteps on the stairs. Soft, careful steps too light to be a grown man's. Twice I found crumbs in the pantry after I'd cleaned it. And once, early in the morning, I saw Mark quietly locking the attic door. "Why are you doing that?" I asked. He didn't miss a beat. "Squirrels." But squirrels don't turn doorknobs. One evening when Mark was out getting groceries, the tapping didn't just happen. It shifted. I watched the false wall flex inward, like someone pressed their palm against it from the other side. My breath froze. Then came a sound so unmistakably human that my skin crawled. A child's wet, miserable sniffle. Mark rushed in minutes later, out of breath. "Did you hear something?" he asked. Not with curiosity, but panic. For the first time, I realized Mark wasn't confused by the noises. He was afraid of them. That night, after Mark fell asleep, I lay awake replaying the wall shifting in my mind. The sniffle, Mark's reaction, his strange habit of turning up the TV, the attic lock, the missing food. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, something, was in our house. Around 2:30, I slipped out of bed, grabbed a flashlight and the hammer from the toolbox, and walked down the long hallway toward the false wall. Up close, beneath the baseboard, were faint scrapes, tiny ones, spaced evenly. Fingernail marks. I whispered to myself, "No raccoon does this." I raised the hammer and struck the wall. The drywall cracked on the second hit. On the third, a hole opened, and a foul smell leaked out. Mold, sweat, something metallic. I widened the hole and squeezed inside. The space was small, 8 by 10 at most. The walls were covered in crayon marks, stick figures, stars, crooked houses. A filthy mattress sat in the corner. A plastic bucket, crusted with dark residue, sat beside it. But none of that stopped my breath. In the far corner stood a girl, maybe 8 or 9, thin as a twig, hair tangled, eyes huge with fear. She whispered, "Are you the new mommy?" I stumbled backward. "What? Who are you?" She rushed forward and grabbed my arm. Her fingers were ice. "Please," she begged, "don't tell him I talked to you. He gets mad. He says I ruin things. He says if I stay quiet, I'll get a real room one day. He said you were supposed to pretend I'm not here, like the others." "Others?" I whispered. Before she could answer, her face went white with terror. She jerked away. Behind me, the drywall panel snapped open. Mark stood there, breathing hard. "Get away from her," he said. Not to me, to the girl. The girl shrank back as Mark stepped into the room. I'd never seen a child cower like that, shoulders hiked to her ears, hands over her head. She didn't cry, she didn't beg. She just froze, like she had learned crying only made it worse. "What is going on?" I demanded. "Who is she? Mark, what did you do?" But he didn't look at me. His hand clamped around the girl's wrist with terrifying familiarity. "It's okay," he muttered to her. "You weren't supposed to talk to her, I told you that." She whimpered as he dragged her toward the hallway. I lunged forward. "Let her go!" He shoved me hard enough that I hit the wall. By the time I regained my footing, they were already halfway down the stairs. "Mark!" I screamed, chasing after them. But when I reached the bottom, the house was silent. The front door open. The driveway empty. The girl, Mark, gone. His phone sat on the kitchen counter. The last text was from an unknown number. "We need another one soon. She's getting too old." My stomach dropped. My hands shook so violently the phone nearly slipped through my fingers. I ran out of the house barefoot and didn't stop until I hit the main road. A driver called 911 for me when I flagged him down. Hours later, a detective sat across from me at the station. "We searched the house," he said. "There's no child, no man, no evidence anyone lived behind that wall." "But I saw her," I insisted. "She touched me. He dragged her out." The detective sighed. "We'll keep looking. But the house is clean." Clean. A week later, I got a voicemail. No callback number. No caller ID. A small, shaky voice whispered, "Mommy, come back. I'm being punished." I moved in with my sister after everything happened, but sleep didn't follow me. Every night I replayed the girl's trembling voice, the way she clung to me, the way Mark grabbed her like she was property, not a child who needed help. I couldn't stop asking myself the impossible question. How long had she been in that room? Days? Months? Years? 2 weeks passed before I worked up the courage to return to the house with a detective. I needed proof. I needed someone else to see the scratches, the mattress, the bucket. But when we opened the wall, the space was empty. No mattress, no bucket, no drawings, no smell, just bare wooden studs and fresh insulation. "Someone cleaned it out," I whispered. The detective frowned. "Ma'am, no one's been here except our team." But I saw it. Tiny fingerprints still smudged on the inside of the panel. I touched one and swallowed the rising lump in my throat. "Mark didn't act alone," I murmured. "Someone else cleaned this. Someone who knew." The detective didn't respond. A few nights later, I got another voicemail. The same small voice, weaker now. "Mommy, he said you're not coming back. He said I ruined everything again." The line crackled, followed by a muffled cry. I pressed the phone to my forehead and sobbed. I didn't know where she was. I didn't know who had her. But I knew she was real. And I knew Mark had been lying long before the house. 6 months have passed. The police are still searching. I've given them every voicemail, every detail, every memory. But some nights, around 2 in the morning, I wake up gasping. Because I can still hear it. That same soft tapping. Like fingernails. Behind a wall that isn't there. Evil doesn't always look like a stranger in the dark. Sometimes it looks like someone you trust, someone you love, someone who smiles at neighbors and signs mortgage papers. The greatest danger often hides in the ordinary, and the smallest ignored red flag can become the difference between safety and horror. Listen to your instincts. Pay attention to the things that don't feel right. Silence and denial are accomplices to harm. Awareness and action save lives. Before the farmhouse, before Minnesota winters carved their way into our bones, Ian and I were just 2 tired people looking for quiet. After 10 years in Chicago, sirens, honking, endless crowds, we wanted space. Ian, especially. He'd grown up in rural Indiana and talked constantly about wanting land to breathe on. I chalked it up to nostalgia. When we finally found the farmhouse outside Rochester, he walked the backyard like he was stepping into a cathedral. The property stretched nearly 2 acres, a wide swath of grass that dipped toward a tree line thick with birch and pine. Ian stood there with his hands on his hips and said, almost reverently, "This is the one." I should have noticed then how long he stayed outside during the inspection, or how he asked the realtors strange questions about the soil depth, drainage patterns, and historical use of the land. But I was too busy imagining a life with fewer arguments and slower mornings. We moved in that September. Ian took to the yard immediately, digging, raking, shaping the earth like someone building a blueprint only he understood. He'd come inside with mud on his boots, wipe his brow and say, "Another project done." I never saw a difference. Not one. When I joked that he was building a graveyard, expecting a laugh, he stared at me with an expression I couldn't place. Not anger, not humor. Something closer to disappointment. As the weeks passed, he grew more withdrawn, more guarded. When I'd ask what he was working on, he'd simply say, "Just fixing what's broken." I never asked what he meant. Back then, I thought the yard was his therapy, a way to work through stress, a place where he could control something in a world that often made him feel invisible. But eventually I learned the truth. He was controlling something, or someone. It started small, the kind of thing you convince yourself doesn't matter. One night, while Ian dozed on the couch, I picked up his jeans to toss them in the hamper. When I lifted them, something rattled in the pockets. I reached in, expecting loose change or screws from one of his yard projects. Instead, my fingers brushed something brittle, thin, fragmented. I pulled out a handful of pale shards, their edges jagged like broken seashells. But these weren't shells. They weren't rocks either. They were too smooth, too curved in a way that felt eerily organic. When Ian stirred, I held them up. "What are these?" He didn't miss a beat. "Animal bones. Coyotes dig up old remains all the time." "Ian," I said slowly, "they're big." He shrugged. "Farm country, lots of large animals." But something inside me prickled, an instinct I'd ignored too many times. Later that week, he came in with his boots caked in mud, breathing hard like he'd run a marathon. He said, "Another project done?" But his voice shook. "What project?" I asked. "You wouldn't get it," he snapped. The next day I checked the yard. Every inch looked untouched. No trenches, no new soil, nothing. When I asked him again that night, he smiled too calmly. The yard doesn't tell its secrets right away. His words chilled me more than the October air seeping through the windows. But the breaking point came when our dog, Mabel, started digging along the back fence. She unearthed something wrapped in canvas, stained, heavy. Ian charged outside, screaming at her so violently she whimpered and bolted toward me. He grabbed the bundle like it was a newborn, sprinted to the shed, and locked himself inside. That night, long after the lights went out, I heard him sobbing inside the shed. It was the first time in our marriage that Ian sounded genuinely broken, and the first time I wondered what he had buried beneath our feet. The next morning, Ian was gone. So was the canvas bundle. So was Mabel. The shed smelled faintly of smoke, and the dirt around it had been freshly raked, as if someone wanted the ground to forget whatever happened the night before. I called for Mabel until my throat hurt. Ian said she ran off, but he wouldn't look me in the eye. He left for work without breakfast, mud still drying on his hands. When silence finally settled over the house, something inside me hardened. I needed answers. I grabbed a long metal soil probe from the garage and began walking the yard, pressing it into the ground every few feet. Most spots hit firm earth, but near the back fence, where Mabel had been digging, the probe sank too easily. Soft soil, freshly disturbed. I pushed the probe again, and again, and again. Dozens of spots sank deeper than they should have. My heart hammered as I dropped to my knees and clawed through the dirt with my hands. After a few inches, the shovel hit something plastic, a small sealed container. Inside were children's toys, old, weathered by time. A rubber duck gone gray. A cracked yo-yo. A hair bow with faded polka dots. On the lid was a name and a year. 1994. My stomach twisted. I dug more. Another container. Another name. 1998. 2 more. 3 more. One held a single tiny shoe with a dark, dried stain on the fabric. Some had toys. Some had hair. Some had nothing but the name. My breath came in short gasps as dread crashed over me. This wasn't a hobby. This wasn't nostalgia. This was a pattern. A cemetery built in secrets. And the man tending it slept beside me every night. My hands shook as I ran inside the house. I tore through drawers, cabinets, closets, determined to find whatever he'd hidden. Part of me prayed there was a rational explanation. The other part already knew better. In Ian's office, there was a desk drawer that always stuck. I yanked it hard enough that the panel popped loose. Behind it was a thin metal journal locked with a cheap clasp. I pried it open with a paring knife. The first page was dated 20 years ago. The writing was neat, calm, ordinary, but the content. First one found. Couldn't leave him there. Someone had to take responsibility. Second one. Didn't make a sound. A good sign. This one liked to sing. Loud child. Difficult. On and on it went. Page after page. Year after year. Dozens of entries. Dozens of projects. Each child documented like an item on a grocery list. Birthmarks, heights, favorite toys, the way they cried. I dropped the journal, stumbling backward until I hit the wall. My vision tunneled. My breath came too fast. That's when I heard the floorboard creak behind me. Ian stood in the doorway. Calm, expressionless. Mud dried on his hands and beneath his fingernails. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said softly. "Ian, what did you do?" He stepped forward. "I protected them. Someone had to. Someone had to keep the record." I bolted. I didn't think. I just ran. Through the kitchen. Through the mudroom. Barefoot into the bitter air. He didn't chase me. He didn't have to. Because the look in his eyes said he already knew my next move. And he was already planning around it. The police barely listened. They searched the yard, but every mound I had uncovered was gone. The soil was tilled, leveled, masked. "Like someone landscaped overnight," one officer muttered. The containers were gone. The shed was burned from the inside out, smoldering ashes where evidence should have been. Ian's journal vanished. I told them about the entries, the toys, the shoe, the canvas bundle. Mabel. "Ma'am," an officer said gently, "this sounds like the aftermath of a domestic dispute. With no physical evidence, there's nothing to pursue. Case closed." Ian disappeared the next day. I stayed with a friend for weeks, never returning to the farmhouse. The silence was both a comfort and a terror. Every night, I wondered if I had imagined everything, if grief and fear had twisted my mind into believing something impossible. But then last night, a package arrived at my friend's doorstep. No return address. Inside were Eric's old work boots, caked in mud that smelled like our yard. Mabel's red collar, still scratched where she had chewed it as a puppy. And a note, written in his familiar slanted handwriting. "Don't dig anymore. I'll take care of the next one myself." I dropped the box and backed away as bile rose in my throat. He was watching. He knew where I was, and he wasn't finished. The police have been notified again. I've been moved to another location under protective supervision. They say I'm safe, but I know better, because men like Ian don't stop. They continue, quietly, patiently, under the soil. I never wanted to move into that house on Lockridge Lane. Hannah loved it the moment she saw the wraparound porch and the tall oak trees swaying like they were waving us in. She said it felt like a place where a future could happen. I thought it felt like a place where plumbing went to die. Drafty walls, uneven floors, lights that flickered whenever the microwave ran. Classic old house charm, she said. Old house rot, I called it. But Hannah, she had that smile, the kind that made arguments crumble. So we bought it, and on our first night there, she kissed me and said, "This is our new beginning." I wanted to believe that. Lord knows I did. We'd had a rough year, her mother's death, my job downsizing, financial stress squeezing us from both sides. But when she looked at me in that empty living room, her hands on my shoulders, I thought maybe the house really could be a clean slate. The basement was the only hard rule. She told me it was unsafe. Old insulation, mold, unstable beams. "Promise me you won't go down there," she said. "It's a health hazard." I shrugged. Fine by me. Basements were never my thing. Except that first week, I heard her go down there every night around 1 a.m. Footsteps, the creak of that heavy basement door, and then talking. Soft, low, like she was comforting someone. I'd get up, check the bed, and she'd be right there beside me, breathing slow, dead asleep. When I asked her about it the next morning, she looked genuinely confused. "Honey, I didn't get up. I slept like a rock." She even laughed about it, brushing my worry off as stress dreams. I tried convincing myself she was right, but deep down, somewhere far below where logic lives, I knew something was wrong long before I opened that door. It was a Thursday when everything cracked open. She left for a late shift. Her job at the assisted living facility had unpredictable hours. I trusted her. Or maybe I trusted the version of her I wanted to believe still existed. 10 minutes after she left, her phone buzzed on the couch. Once. Twice. Then over and over like an alarm someone was trying to silence by persistence alone. Normally, I'd never snoop. But this wasn't normal. The screen lit up with the same contact, the same message on repeat. "He's waking up again. Come quickly. Sender. Unit 3A. My stomach churned. We lived in a single-family house. No units, no apartments, no logical explanation. I picked up the phone and tried unlocking it. No luck. But the notifications were right there. The urgency wasn't subtle. Whoever was texting her wasn't joking. It read like someone reporting to a supervisor, or a partner in something secret. My brain rattled through possibilities. Maybe she was seeing someone? Maybe she was involved in something shady? Maybe she was lying about work the whole time? None of those ideas made me feel better, just different shades of sick. I paced the living room, staring at that basement door like it was staring back. I thought about the late-night footsteps, the whispers, the way she insisted, borderline desperate, that I avoid that space. I called her twice, straight to voicemail. The buzzing stopped as suddenly as it began, like whoever was on the other end realized I wasn't her. The silence afterward felt heavy, like the house was holding its breath. That was the moment something changed in me. The moment when curiosity stopped being innocent and turned into fear. Real fear. The kind that sticks to your ribs. I put on my shoes, grabbed a flashlight, and forced myself to do the one thing she begged me not to. I opened the basement door. Dust blanketed the stairs, except for a narrow, clean strip right down the center, freshly used, recently disturbed. Hers. The air grew colder as I descended. Not just cooler, cold. Like basement refrigerator cold. My breath didn't fog, but my skin prickled all the same. At the bottom sat a second door, thick wood reinforced with metal brackets. Someone had installed them recently. Not old house original hardware. New, polished bolts catching the beam of my flashlight. It looked less like a basement door and more like a holding cell. Then I heard it. Breathing. Human. Slow. Strained. And then a voice, hoarse and trembling. "Hannah, please don't leave me here. I'll be good." I froze. Every instinct screamed to run, to pretend I'd never heard it, never opened the door, never started down this dark path. But something stronger pulled me forward, something I still can't explain. I opened the bracket door exactly 2 inches. No more. The man inside lunged so hard he shook the frame. His wrists were chained to metal rings in the foundation wall. His hair was matted, beard overgrown, eyes wild but sharp with terror when he realized I wasn't her. "You're not her," he croaked. "No. Who are you? What is this?" My voice cracked like cheap wood. He looked at me, the way someone looks at a rescuer they're not sure is real. Then past me, toward the stairs. "She's going to be angry," he whispered. "She said no one can know about me. She said you'd ruin everything." My pulse hammered. "No what? What did she do to you?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pointed with his chained wrist at a table in the corner. My flashlight followed, and that's when I saw the photos. Hundreds of them, all of me, all taken while I slept, each one labeled with notes in her handwriting. Subject stable, no suspicion, behavior unchanged. Night 247. He didn't wake. My knees almost buckled. The man whispered, barely audible, "You don't know what she really is." I slammed the door, ran up the stairs, and locked myself in the bedroom. Logic and panic fought inside my head until both were useless. How long had she been documenting me? And why? Was the man dangerous? Or was she the real danger? Nothing made sense. I tried calling her again, straight to voicemail. I tried texting. No read receipts. No reply. Every minute stretched like a rubber band pulled too far. By midnight, I knew she wasn't coming home. Not that night. Maybe not ever. When I finally worked up the courage, I went back downstairs, not to the basement, but to her office, a place I rarely entered. Papers sat neatly stacked, as always. Her planner lay open to the current week. No appointments written, no shifts scheduled at all. Had she been lying about work? Inside the desk drawer, I found a key card labeled 3A Access. No address, no company name. Just the code and her initials etched into the back. My hands shook as I flipped through the folders in her filing box. Most were mundane. Bills, tax forms, letters from her sister. but the last folder stopped my breath cold. Behavioral monitoring. Subject H02. Inside were graphs, charts, notes, documenting my habits, my sleep patterns, my stress levels, my work schedule, even how often I ate certain foods. She had a section titled Triggers with bullet points. Isolation, loud noises, arguments, temperature shifts. It was clinical, cold, like I wasn't her husband but something she was studying. I sat on the floor and cried before I even realized I was crying. Around 3 a.m., exhaustion pulled me into a restless half-sleep, but something woke me. A sound drifting through the vents, faint but unmistakable. Footsteps, slow, familiar. Then a soft voice, hers. Only this time, she wasn't whispering to the chained man. She was whispering about me. Subject is awake. I didn't move at first. I lay frozen, listening to the creak of the basement stairs beneath her weight, or whatever was making that sound. I told myself it couldn't be her. She wasn't home. I would have heard the door. The windows were locked. Nothing made sense, except the voice. "Honey," she called sweetly. Too sweet. Like she was coaxing an animal out of hiding. "Can you come downstairs? I want to show you something." My skin crawled. I stayed silent. "Don't make this harder," she whispered through the vent. "Please, I don't want to sedate you again." Again? My heart punched my ribs so hard I thought it would bruise them from the inside. Memories flickered, moments I'd brushed off as exhaustion. Times I woke up groggy, with headaches I blamed on stress. Days where hours seemed missing. Nights I slept too deeply. Had she drugged me? I swung my legs over the bed and grabbed my car keys. My only plan was to run, get out, never look back. But as I crossed the living room, the basement door slowly opened on its own. It wasn't the dramatic horror movie swing, just a tiny deliberate push. Enough that the darkness inside blinked into view. She stepped out. Or someone who looked like her. Same height, same clothes. But her expression, vacant, controlled. Like someone puppeteering her muscles one movement at a time. "Don't run," she said softly. "You were chosen for a reason." Chosen? I backed toward the front door. She didn't chase. She didn't threaten. She just tilted her head like she was studying me, cataloging, storing my fear the way she stored notes in those folders. "You don't have to be afraid of me," she murmured. "You never did." But I was. I bolted, out the door, down the driveway, into my car. I didn't stop driving until sunrise. The police went to the house. They found nothing. No chained man. No photos. No files. No Hannah. Just an empty basement. They told me stress can cause hallucinations. They said maybe I misinterpreted things. Maybe I imagined the voice. I didn't argue. But that night, in my motel room, I heard her again. Through the air vent above my bed. Subject remains mobile. Even the people we trust most can hide entire worlds behind closed doors. Ignoring red flags, whether out of love, fear, or denial, only deepens the danger. Always listen to your instincts. Safety begins with paying attention to the truths we don't want to face. When Claire and I bought our house on Birch Hollow Drive, we chose it because it was quiet. Too quiet, honestly. But quiet was what we needed after a year that nearly tore us apart. Her father dying, my long work hours, fights that felt like storms. Moving in felt like wiping a slate clean. We promised each other, no big decisions for a while, no pressure, no kids, just us. So when she started redecorating the spare bedroom, I didn't think much of it. Clara always needed projects when her anxiety ramped up. She said it kept her hands busy. I'd come home to see her painting the walls pale yellow, humming softly. She added curtains with little stars stitched on them, a rocking chair, a crib we did not order. I joked, "Honey, the room looks great, but who's supposed to sleep in there?" She didn't laugh. "You'll meet them soon," she said in that flat, calm tone she used whenever she didn't want me asking more. I brushed it off as stress. Maybe grief. Maybe a phase. But it didn't feel like a phase. The night she brought home the baby monitor, I felt that first cold pinch of fear. She set one device inside the nursery and the receiver on her nightstand. I teased her about buying it for a room that would stay empty, and she said, without looking at me, "It won't be empty much longer." That was the moment I realized the woman I loved was slipping into a place I couldn't follow, not without losing myself too. And the worst part? I didn't stop her. The first night the monitor crackled, I sat straight up in bed. It sounded like faint breathing, slow, rhythmic, wrong. I leaned closer. A tiny giggle threaded through the static. Clara didn't even flinch. She just whispered, "They're settling in." "Clara, that room is empty," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's probably interference." She shook her head. "It's not interference. It's them." I didn't sleep that night, or the next. Every time the monitor hissed awake, I heard something new, humming like a lullaby sung by a child who didn't know all the notes, soft tapping like little hands testing the microphone. When I unplugged the device one morning, Clara plugged it right back in. "They get lonely," she said, stroking the plastic like it was alive. "You don't want to upset them." "Who?" I snapped. She just smiled faintly. "You'll see." Something inside me sank. I'd seen Clara anxious, grieving, even depressed, but never delusional, never like this. 2 nights later, she slept deeper than I'd seen in weeks. I took the chance. I crept into the nursery, expecting static, dust, silence. It was perfect. Still. Clean. Nothing out of place. I turned to leave. Then the monitor on her nightstand whispered through the house, clear as breath on my neck. "Turn around." Something about that voice, small, confident, close, sent a shock through me so hard I couldn't breathe. I turned. A tiny handprint was pressed on the inside of the window. Fresh. Too small to be Clara's. Too detailed to be mine. I backed away, heart pounding, certain for the first time that something was very, very wrong. I felt Clara before I saw her. The air shifted behind me, warm where it shouldn't be. She stood in the doorway, holding a bundle wrapped tightly in a pale blue blanket. "You woke them," she whispered, almost scolding. My mouth went dry. "Clara, what are you holding?" She stepped closer and pulled back the blanket. Nothing. But the blanket sagged in her arms, like something unseen was shifting its weight, adjusting position, settling. "There," she cooed into the empty space. "It's okay, sweetheart. Daddy's just surprised." A cold wave crawled up my spine. "Clara, stop. There's nothing." Before I could finish, tiny feet pattered across the floor behind me. Light, fast, playful. I spun around. Nothing. But the sounds were unmistakable. Wood tapping, scurrying, happy little bursts of movement. Handprints, smudged, small, oily, began appearing on the nursery door, then on the wall, on the floorboards, on my shirt. I staggered back. "Clara, please, what is happening?" She didn't answer me. She crouched, kissing the air just above the floor. "You scared them," she murmured. "They just want a family." I pressed my hands to my face because I didn't know what else to do. My wife, my rational, grounded wife, was acting like she had a toddler crawling around that I couldn't see. But the worst part wasn't her behavior. The worst part was that the room felt full, like something unseen was circling us, like little fingers brushed my pant leg. And I realized Clara wasn't pretending. She believed someone was there. And maybe, God help me, maybe she wasn't the only one. Clara stopped sleeping in our bedroom. She moved into the nursery with her invisible children. I'd wake up to hear her laughing softly in the dark or singing lullabies that didn't sound like songs she knew. I asked her over and over what was going on. "They needed a mother," she said. I couldn't ignore them. "Clara, you're scaring me. No one wants to be alone." She cupped her hand as if stroking a tiny head. "Not even them." I tried everything, calling her sister, calling her doctor, calling anyone who might help. She dismissed all of it. "You're not listening. They're real. They chose us." But the house felt different too. I'd walk past the nursery and feel cold patches in the hallway. Toys I didn't remember buying. Little blocks, plastic rings, appeared on the floor. I'd sweep them into a box, and the next morning they'd be arranged neatly on the carpet again, like someone was playing while we slept. Other things changed. Drawers opened on their own. The rocking chair moved at night. The sound of giggles followed me when I walked past the door. And the baby monitor, God, that monitor, kept whispering my name. "Daddy." One night I woke to the faint pressure of tiny fingers brushing my cheek. I sat bolt upright, heart hammering, and saw the blankets beside me shift. A small impression, like the shape of a curled-up child, etched itself into the mattress. Clara appeared at the doorway, smiling lovingly. "They wanted to sleep with you," she whispered. My skin crawled. My wife had lost herself completely. But worse, much worse, was that something unseen had found me. Last week, everything snapped. I came home from work to find the nursery door closed. Not unusual. What was unusual was the sound coming from inside. Multiple voices whispering, overlapping, childish, but not quite human. Clara was humming along with them, completely at ease. "Clara?" I called softly. Silence. Then a dozen tiny knocks from the other side of the door, like small fists tapping, rhythmic, impatient. I backed away until my shoulder hit the wall. She opened the door slowly, smiling like a sleepwalker. "They want to play hide and seek. Come inside." "No, Clara, listen to me. You're not well." Her eyes shimmered, almost glowing in the dim hallway. "I'm better than I've ever been." Behind her, I saw impressions in the carpet, little footprints appearing one by one, walking toward me. Too deliberate, too real. My breath hitched. "Clara, please." She tilted her head. "Don't be afraid of your children." Something tugged on the leg of my jeans. Gentle, curious. I looked down, and though I saw nothing, the fabric dented inward, like small fingers gripping it. That was it. That was the moment my mind finally broke free of denial. I ran, out the door, into my car, down the street with my heart sprinting faster than the wheels. I sleep in hotels now, moving every few days. But no matter where I go, around 3 a.m., I hear it. The soft patter of tiny feet. A whisper near my ear. "Daddy, don't hide." And sometimes, I swear I see a handprint forming on the window. When someone you love starts slipping into a dangerous belief, or dragging you into it, ignoring the warning signs only deepens the threat. Trust your instincts, speak up early, and protect your own boundaries. Some doors, once opened, can't ever be closed again. I never wanted to go back to Rowan House. To me, it was just an abandoned corpse of a mansion sitting on top of a hill, rotting from the inside out. To Aaron, it was home. or whatever version of home a person creates to survive their childhood. We'd been separated for 6 months, mostly my doing, mostly because of what I found. Dozens of encrypted files on his hard drive, addressed to someone he labeled Patient A. I thought it was another woman, a secret affair, a betrayal I could sink my teeth into and walk away satisfied that I wasn't leaving without reason. But when I confronted him, he cried, real tears, the kind he never shed even at his mother's funeral. He grabbed my hands and begged, "Come with me to Rowan House. Just a month. We can fix everything there." "Why there?" I asked. "Because the house heals people." Those words alone should have made me run. Instead, I let the guilt creep in. The look in his eyes reminded me of the frightened boy he used to be, the one who lost his mother during a winter storm 23 years ago. Townsfolk said she was swallowed by the blizzard, but the rumors were different. They said she never left the house at all. The locals called it the Rowan House. Everyone else called it the house that remembers. I told myself I'd stay for 30 days, just long enough to help Aaron let go of whatever was haunting him. But by the time we pulled up the driveway and the porch light flickered on, despite the electricity not being connected, I felt the first cold shiver in my bones. The house remembered me, even though I'd never been there. The first night was when I realized something was wrong. Not wrong like mold or loose floorboards, wrong like the house had a heartbeat. I heard it as soon as I lay down. A slow, rhythmic exhale drifting through the vents. "Aaron," I whispered, nudging him awake. "Do you hear that?" "Hear what?" He rolled over like a man used to ignoring things that normal people would run away from. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling as a soft thump echoed through the walls, like something moving inside them. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was pipes shifting or animals nesting. Anything logical, anything human. But the house wasn't satisfied with logic. It wanted attention. Whenever I walked into a room, it warmed, subtle but intentional, like the air leaned toward me. Mirrors fogged with a print of a woman's hand. Too long, too thin, as if something cold had pressed against the glass. "Aaron," I said as calmly as I could, "has this house ever felt alive to you?" He paused mid-pour of his coffee. His jaw tightened. "Don't start," he said. "You always make things dramatic." I wasn't being dramatic, not when I found a locked door beneath the staircase, a door so old the wood had warped inward as though pulled from the other side. "What's in here?" I asked. "Storage," he said flatly. "Lost the key." But every night after that, I heard scratching behind it. Not skittering, not rodent. Fingernails. Long, slow drags across wood that made my teeth ache. And louder each night, as if whatever was on the other side recognized me, welcomed me, waited. On day 6, while unpacking clothes, I found a rotten trunk shoved behind the bedroom dresser. Inside were journals. At least I thought they were until I realized they were case files. Old, yellowed pages with typed notes and photographs glued inside. The first page read, "Patient A, primary subject." "Jesus, Aaron," I whispered. "What were you into?" Only, the handwriting wasn't his. The style of the photos wasn't modern. The notes were dated nearly 3 decades earlier, long before Aaron was even a teenager. His mother wrote them. The entries chilled me. Patient A shows reactive behavior to emotional shifts. Patient A needs structure. Patient A must not be left alone too long. Then the worst sentence. Patient A is the house. I slammed the journal shut. My fingers shook so hard the pages crumpled. His mother believed the Rowan House was alive, a sentient thing with moods, desires, memories, a consciousness. In her final entry, dated 3 days before she vanished, she wrote, "The house chooses favorites. It wants a wife for my son." As I read that line, the lights flickered, 3 times, slow and deliberate, like Morse code. A vibration rolled through the floorboards beneath my feet. I felt watched. Not by Aaron, not by anything living. It was the feeling of standing in a room you're certain you entered alone, and suddenly realizing someone else is breathing behind you. I dropped the journal. From the staircase came the sound of a low, humming moan, almost human, almost not, rising up through the house like a warning, or a greeting. There was a portrait in the East Hall, one I somehow hadn't noticed the first few days. A woman stood stiffly, painted in muted tones, her eyes hollowed like she knew secrets no one wanted to hear. The plaque beneath read simply, "The First Wife." "Who is she?" I asked Aaron. He stiffened. "No one." "Then why is she here?" "We don't talk about her. The house gets upset." Upset. He said upset like one might describe a spoiled child. That night on my way to the bathroom, I froze. The portrait had changed. The woman's head tilted slightly toward me. Her hand, previously at her side, now extended forward, reaching. A streak of black dripped down the canvas. I leaned close. It wasn't paint. The metallic scent hit me instantly. Iron. Blood. The next morning, I found Aaron coming up the cellar stairs with a lantern, his face pale, clothes sprinkled with grains of salt. "Aaron, why are you down there?" He didn't answer. He brushed past me like he didn't even see me. When he disappeared into the kitchen, I crept toward the cellar door. The wood was cold, unnaturally cold. The moment my fingertips touched it, the entire house groaned. The floor vibrated. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, I hear you." I backed away slowly, but as I walked to our bedroom, I felt eyes watching me from the hall. When I dared to glance back, the first wife's hand in the portrait had moved again. Now it pressed against the inside of the canvas, as if she were trying to get out. By the 20th day, I wasn't sleeping. The scratching behind the stairwell door grew louder, more desperate. The halls twisted in subtle ways, like they stretched or shrank when I wasn't looking. And Aaron, he grew comfortable. Too comfortable. He spent nights in the cellar, returning smelling like salt and wet stone. He whispered to himself as he walked. Sometimes, I swear I heard a second voice whispering back. When I finally snapped and broke the stairwell door with a crowbar, Aaron didn't try to stop me. He only said, "She's waiting for you," and stepped aside. The staircase spiraled into darkness. No lights, no airflow, just a cold so deep it felt like it crawled under my skin. At the bottom was the cellar, its walls carved with hundreds of handprints and one repeating phrase, "She never left." In the corner stood Aaron's mother, alive, but wrong. She had no eyes, just 2 hollow sockets threaded with thin, root-like tendrils that pulsed gently, like breathing vines. Her head tilted toward me as though she sensed heat instead of sight. She smiled. Aaron stepped beside her, his voice trembling with devotion. "Mother, she came, just like you said she would." Then he held up a ring carved from something pale and porous. Bone. Definitely bone. "She chose you," he whispered. "The house accepts you." I ran. I didn't care where. But the house bent itself around me, closing off exits, guiding me back to the portrait. The first wife was gone from the canvas. In her place was my own face, trapped behind glass, mouth open in a silent scream. Behind me, a cold hand touched my shoulder. Aaron's mother whispered, "Your turn to stay." I don't remember leaving my body, but I remember waking up inside the walls, and realizing the house had been waiting for me all along. Ignoring the past, your partner's, your family's, or your own, doesn't make it disappear. Secrets grow roots. They wait. And eventually they demand to be acknowledged. Know who you're choosing to build a life with, before the things they hide start choosing you. I've been a detective for 12 years, and I've heard some awful things, confessions, screams, final breaths caught on accident during 911 calls, but nothing prepared me for the moment I pressed play on the cassette found in an abandoned storage unit off Route 9. The voice belonged to Alyssa Ward, missing 4 months. Her tone wasn't frantic, it wasn't hysterical. It was worse, calm, resigned, the way someone sounds when they've already accepted they're dead. If you're hearing this, then my husband is dead, and so am I. But not in a way you understand. The hairs on the back of my neck rose. I'd interviewed Tom Ward twice after her disappearance. He was nervous, sure, but grief can make anyone shake. I didn't know then he was hiding an entire second life, one built around a cult, a secret marriage ritual, and something he called the second bride. I sat alone in interview room B, just me and the faint hum of the fluorescent lights as the tape continued. Alyssa described the night everything changed. The night she checked Tom's phone after he fell asleep. The messages, the invitations, the photos of masked women, all signed, the Sable Circle. Cheating, that's what she thought. A simple marital betrayal. But with every new sentence, every word she spoke, I realized this case wasn't about infidelity at all. It was about transformation. Something Tom willingly let into his life, and something that wanted Alyssa next. As I leaned back, trying to steady my breathing, the tape hissed softly, like someone exhaling right beside my ear. Detective, if you found this, I'm already gone. I didn't stop the tape, even when I should have. Alyssa's voice grew shaky as she described the weeks leading up to her disappearance. She'd tried to forgive Tom, tried to believe it was just sex, just stupidity, just human failure. But then the nights changed. I started seeing a woman, Alyssa whispered on the tape, tall, thin, a shadow at first. I'd wake up and she'd be standing in the bedroom doorway. My breath hitched. Tom never reported hallucinations, never mentioned anything supernatural. He just said Alyssa was unstable. The tape clicked softly as Alyssa continued. I asked Tom if he saw her too. He nodded, like it was normal. That was the moment, she said, when she realized Tom wasn't cheating with a person. He was cheating with a presence. He kept telling her the same thing. The circle healed me. They can heal us. You just have to meet them. Alyssa said no. Then the shadow woman began getting closer. By the third night, the figure stood at the foot of their bed. On the fifth night, Alyssa felt fingers comb slowly through her hair. Tom didn't react. He didn't scream. He didn't even blink. He just murmured, "You have to accept her." The next morning, Alyssa found her reflection lagging in the bathroom mirror. She turned her head left. It stayed still for a beat too long. She lifted her hand. The reflection's hand twitched late, like a puppet learning how to move. "I thought it was stress," she said. "But shadows don't breathe on your skin." One night, she woke to cold fingers pressing lightly against her throat. Tom held her as she panicked, and instead of comforting her, he whispered, "Please, Alyssa, don't insult her." That was the moment Alyssa realized she wasn't dealing with a mistress. She was dealing with a replacement. Alyssa's voice dropped lower on the tape, as though afraid someone or something was listening. Tom blindfolded me. He said it was tradition. He drove her deep into the state forest. She could smell pine sap and wet earth when the car stopped. He guided her by the wrist until she heard a door creak open and the crackling of torches. When he finally removed the blindfold, she saw the cabin. Women stood in a circle around a ring of salt, 8 of them wearing velvet masks stitched with silver patterns. One mask bore a jagged smile carved into it. The leader. She stepped forward. "Forgiveness requires sacrifice," the masked woman said. Alyssa tried to run, but Tom clutched her arm tightly. "Hey," he whispered gently. "It's just symbolic. Nobody gets hurt." But the mask turned slightly toward him. "Don't lie to her." Alyssa's breathing quickened on the tape. The circle began chanting, slow at first, a hum that vibrated against her ribs. One woman drew a small blade, its handle carved with unfamiliar symbols. Alyssa begged Tom to stop, but he only held her tighter. The leader whispered, "We do not punish you for betrayal. We purify you for binding." Alyssa's hands were lifted into the air. She screamed, but the forest swallowed the sound. 2 cuts were carved into her palms, sharp, shallow, identical to the faded scars Tom carried. The moment the blade touched her, Alyssa said she felt something pulled out of her threads, long and thin, dragging from her veins like spider silk. Whispers passed through the circle. Your grief, your anger, we will take it, but we leave something behind. Alyssa collapsed, and Tom wept not in horror, but in joy. The tape picked up with rustling sounds, like Alyssa moved while recording. After the ritual, everything felt wrong, she said. My reflection lagged. My shadow wasn't mine anymore. She described how the shadow woman followed her constantly, in mirrors, behind doors, in the reflection of car windows passing at night. She felt watched even in the shower, the air growing cold as if someone stood inches behind her. Tom grew peaceful. He slept better. He smiled more. He spent nights at the cabin and returned smelling of smoke and salt. Alyssa followed him once. Inside the cabin, she found portraits lining the walls, portraits of women with long black hair and hollow eyes, women who all resembled the shadow haunting her. On a table lay a leather-bound book, The Second Bride. She read the first page. When a man breaks his vows, his spirit wife is born. She feeds on the first wife's pain. When she is strong enough, she takes her place. Alyssa whispered into the recorder, trembling. Tom didn't cheat on me. He summoned her. The tape crackled. I tried to run, but shadows travel faster than footsteps. That night, the shadow woman crawled onto Alyssa's bed. Alyssa felt her breath cold, wet, steady press against her neck. Tom stood in the doorway, crying. She needs more, he told Alyssa. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Alyssa asked. Who is she? And Tom whispered through tears. Your replacement, the spirit wife. She keeps the bond alive. Every marriage in the circle has one. Alyssa's voice broke completely. I realized then, he didn't marry me for love. He married me to feed her. Alyssa's breathing filled the last part of the tape, ragged and fast. Detective, this is the last part. Tom brought me back to the cabin. He said the second bride wanted my body. Women surrounded her again, masks shining in the torchlight. Tom tied her to the altar, crying but refusing to stop. She just wants to live through you, he whispered. Please don't fight her. The chanting began. The air thickened. The shadows in the corners stretched tall, too tall, until one stepped forward. Alyssa screamed. She climbed inside me, through my mouth, my eyes, my skin. On the tape, I heard Alyssa gasp one long, piercing cry. I'm not alone in here anymore, she whispered. She's inside me. I feel her smiling. She paused. She wants another couple, another marriage, another body to claim. Static warped the end of the tape. Detective Ramirez, if you hear this, she's already coming. The tape clicked off. I stared at the wall, heart pounding in my throat. Then the interview room lights flickered once, twice, then dimmed. Something moved in the corner, thin, tall, limbs brushing the ceiling. A shadow stretched across the floor toward me. A voice whispered behind my ear, low and broken. Forgive me. I dropped the recorder, and the room went dark. When betrayal goes unspoken, it festers, twisting relationships into something unrecognizable. Never ignore the signs of manipulation or secrecy. The more power you surrender to someone else, the easier it becomes for them to replace you, piece by piece. Long before the messages started, before the haunting and the sleepless nights, there was just the truth I tried to bury. My name is Evan Mercer, and I ruined the only good thing I ever had. I cheated on my wife, Laura. I told myself it was one mistake, a moment of weakness, something I could fix if I apologized hard enough. When I finally confessed, I expected shouting, tears, maybe a suitcase flying down the stairs, but Laura just stood there in the kitchen, calm as still water. Everything smelled like lemons from the cleaner she had been using. The sunlight through the blinds cut bars of light across her face. She looked at me with eyes so soft it burned. Everything we do echoes, she said quietly. Some echoes never fade. She didn't leave. She didn't even ask who the woman was. That silence was worse than anger. I tried to make things right, therapy, long conversations, dinners out, but something behind her eyes had gone dim. 3 months later, her car slid off a rainy stretch of highway and wrapped itself around a concrete divider. They told me she died instantly. I didn't believe them. Nothing felt instant about the guilt that followed. People tried to comfort me. It was an accident, Evan, But I had been the fault line running through her life. Everyone knew it, even if they didn't say it. I spent weeks afterward trying to breathe normally, trying to eat, trying to sleep without hearing her words echo in the dark. I thought the worst was over. But 2 days after her funeral, Laura's ruined phone texted me. The first message came at 11:42 pp. "Laura, you can hear me if you listen." I stared at the glowing screen until my vision blurred. Her phone had been in the car with her when she crashed, crushed, burned, bent like wet cardboard. I'd seen it myself at the police station, sealed in an evidence bag. There was no way it could power on again, let alone send a message. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The next night I was brushing my teeth when my phone buzzed again. "Laura, asterisk, I miss you in the dark. Asterisk, I dropped the toothbrush into the sink." "This is a prank," I muttered to my reflection. Some sick joke. But a part of me, the same part that replayed her final words over and over, knew better. A week went by. I tried to act normal. I went back to work. I went on a few dates I had no business going on. Each one collapsed under the weight of my own emptiness, and the messages kept coming. "Laura, asterisk, I hear you breathing when you sleep. Asterisk, asterisk, I see her in our bed. Asterisk." There was no her. I didn't let anyone stay the night. I barely slept at all. One evening, after a couple too many drinks, I texted back, "Me. Asterisk, who is this? Stop. Asterisk." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Laura. Asterisk, you know my voice, even on a screen. Asterisk." I felt the air leave the room. My fingers went numb. I shut the phone off and threw it across the couch. But at 3:13 a.m., it powered on by itself. A final message appeared. "Laura. Asterisk, let me in. Asterisk." That's when the footsteps began. The first night I heard them, I convinced myself it was the house settling, old wood groaning, pipes shifting. I wrapped the blanket tighter around myself, closed my eyes, and waited for sleep to win. But the steps continued slow, steady, deliberate. They stopped right outside my bedroom door. The doorknob rattled gently, like someone testing it from the other side. I whispered, "Laura?" Before I could stop myself, silence answered. The next morning, I found asterisk asterisk wet footprints asterisk asterisk leading from the front door to my bed. Small, familiar, smudged with the same brownish mud Laura had stepped into outside our house the day she died. My heart hammered against my ribs. I cleaned them up, telling myself I was imagining everything. Grief does strange things to people. I Googled that, over and over. But the footprints returned the next night, and the next. One afternoon, trying to claw back a shred of sanity, I drove out to see a medium recommended by a coworker. I expected incense and theatrics. Instead, she greeted me with a hard, frightened stare. "You brought something with you," she said. "No," I laughed. "I know. That's not." She backed away. "She's not a ghost, Evan. She's an imprint, a wound shaped like a memory, created when you broke something sacred." My jaw locked. "Can you help me?" "No," she whispered. "But I can warn you. Never answer her final question." Before I could ask what question she meant, she slammed her door shut. That night, Laura's shattered, impossible phone turned itself on inside my bedroom closet, and her ringtone, one I hadn't heard since she was alive, started to play. When Julia came into my life, it felt like sunlight cracking through storm clouds. She was soft-spoken, warm, someone who listened without trying to fix me. For the first time since the accident, I felt like a person instead of a walking apology. I didn't tell her about the messages. I didn't tell her about the footsteps or the footprints or the way my lights flickered whenever I said Laura's name. I told myself I was protecting her. Really, I was just terrified she'd run. She stayed over for the first time on a cold Friday night. We drank wine, watched some old crime documentary, fell asleep tangled together. For a few hours, I forgot the weight of everything. Then, at 2:14 a.m., the bedroom door creaked open. Julia stirred. "Did you hear that?" Before I could answer, I saw her Laura standing in the doorway. Her hair hung wet around her shoulders. Cracks ran across her face like broken porcelain. Her eyes were pits filled with dark, shifting water. She didn't blink. She didn't breathe. "Evan," Julia whispered, trembling. "Who is that?" Laura took a step inside. The lights flickered out, swallowing us in darkness. Her voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "Do you love her more than me?" I felt my throat tighten. The medium's warning slammed into my mind. Asterisk. Never answer her final question. Asterisk. Laura moved closer. Julia screamed. The air thickened, heavy, freezing. Laura repeated the question, her voice sharp enough to cut. Do you love her more than me? My chest ached. My breath broke. Yes, I whispered. Everything shattered. The moment the word left my mouth, Laura changed. Her face cracked open, revealing jagged darkness beneath. Her jaw tore too wide. Her scream unlike anything human, a crushing metallic shriek, like a car crash happening inside the room. Every window in the house exploded outward. The lights surged back on in a violent flash, and she was gone. Julia left that night. She packed her things with shaking hands, refusing to look at me. I don't know what that was, she sobbed, but I can't stay here. She moved out of state the next morning. I didn't blame her. For a few days, I believed the nightmare was over. No footsteps, no messages, no cold rush of air whispering down the hallway. Then at 3:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. Laura, asterisk. You answered wrong. Asterisk, asterisk. You always answer wrong. Asterisk. My stomach dropped. Another message appeared. Asterisk, I'm coming back. Asterisk. And then, asterisk, bring someone home. Asterisk. Asterisk, I get lonely. Asterisk. My hands shook uncontrollably. I set the phone down and backed away from it like it was radioactive. But curiosity or fear pulled me to the hallway. There, pressed into the wooden floor, were two sets of wet footprints. One pair was Laura's. The other belonged to bare feet much larger than hers. Feet I had never seen before. Feet leading deeper into the house. The footsteps didn't belong to the living. And whatever followed Laura out of the dark, it wasn't only hers. Unhealed guilt becomes a prison that builds walls of its own making. If we refuse to confront our mistakes honestly and fully, those mistakes don't fade, they return, louder, sharper, and more destructive than we ever imagined. Honesty may hurt, but silence and secrets can haunt forever. We thought a fresh start would heal us. Our marriage had been fraying since Emily's year-long emotional affair. She swore it meant nothing, that she regretted it, that I was the only one she ever loved. I told her I forgave her, but trust isn't a switch you flip. We moved in anyway, hoping the new house would be a clean slate. The place was old, far too big for two people, with floors that creaked under every step. Emily refused to open the guest room, insisting it was full of junk and mold, that the floorboards weren't safe. She kept the key on a chain around her neck at all times. I teased her once about sleeping with it on, and she didn't laugh. The first week was uneventful. I unpacked, she decorated. We ate takeout in the kitchen, laughing at old memories, pretending the past didn't exist. The 8th night changed everything. I woke at 2:13 a.m. to a slow, dragging pace down the hall. I nudged Emily awake. She listened. The footsteps stopped instantly. Probably just the house settling, she whispered, but her voice had an edge. Fear. It wasn't just the sound. It was the timing. Every night, like clockwork, someone or something walked past our room. Some nights it paused outside the guest room, almost lingering. The air grew thick when it passed, like someone was watching. I tried to rationalize it. Old house, grief, stress, but deep down, I knew it wasn't just settling, and that was when things started disappearing. At first, it was small things. My wallet, my watch, socks from the hamper. I assumed Emily was playing a prank, or maybe I was losing my mind after weeks of sleepless nights. But then, they started showing up outside the guest room door, neatly arranged. My clothes folded like someone had gone out of their way to put them there. One night, I confronted Emily. "Did you move my stuff?" I asked, trying to sound calm. She froze, eyes wide. "I know. I haven't touched anything in there." I wanted to believe her, but the tension in her voice made me doubt myself. Then it escalated. One evening, I opened the fridge for a glass of water, and my wedding ring was on the guest room doorknob. I nearly dropped the glass. Emily broke down. "I should have told you sooner," she said, trembling. Her eyes were red. "My mother, before she died, she lost her mind sometimes. Dementia, paranoia. She accused me of stealing my father, locked herself in that room for 2 days. When she came out, she was dead." I swallowed hard. "You're saying she died in there?" Emily nodded. "Yes, That room. It's bad, Evan. She wasn't right in her head. I wanted to ask more, but my voice caught. The thought of what she'd endured, and what might still linger, made the hair on my neck stand up. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, listening to the house breathe around me, hearing faint creaks from the hall. At 2:13 a.m., I heard the dragging steps again. Only this time, they stopped just outside my door, and I felt a cold, impossibly close presence. Weeks passed. The footsteps continued nightly at 2:13 a.m., sometimes pausing, sometimes pacing. I tried to ignore them, to rationalize it, but things kept appearing outside the guest room door. My mind started fraying. One night, I noticed Emily's necklace on the nightstand. She must have taken it off while asleep. The key dangled from it like a silver question mark. My heart pounded. I could resist no longer. I slipped the necklace from her neck without waking her. The guest room door stared at me. My hand trembled as I turned the key. I half expected dust and mold, broken furniture. Instead, the room was immaculate. A neatly made bed, spotless hardwood, curtains drawn just so. The air was thick with perfume, old floral, cloying, choking. My eyes fell on the nightstand. A framed photo, Emily, smiling, an older woman beside her, and a man standing between them, a man with my face, my exact face. I dropped the key. The photo was dated 1994, 12 years before I was born. On the back, in flowing cursive, asterisk, my Emily, my husband, my little family, asterisk. I stumbled back, tripping over my own feet. My pulse raced. I felt dizzy. The footsteps didn't come that night. They were already inside me, in my head. When Emily woke, I shoved the key back around her neck. She didn't notice. She never would. Not yet. But the house had changed. The air felt alive, watching, patient, and every night, the dragging steps edged closer, closer, until one night, they stopped right outside my door. It had been 3 weeks since I opened the guest room. I tried to sleep, but nothing was normal. My dreams were thick with the smell of perfume, the creak of hardwood, the echo of a woman crying. I avoided Emily during the day, kept myself busy, but at night, the house demanded attention. The footsteps stopped just outside my bedroom at 2:13 a.m. Again, I froze. A whisper slid through the crack in the door. Soft, deliberate, intimate. You never should have come back. I swallowed. My throat felt raw. I wanted to scream, to call Emily, to run, but my body refused. The whisper was velvet and ice. I recognized it immediately. Emily's mother, or something claiming her voice. I tried reasoning with it. I didn't do anything, I shouted. My voice was weak. The whisper returned, closer this time, like it was inside my head. You belong to us. I stumbled out of bed. My feet padded over hardwood that didn't make a sound, though the presence followed me like a shadow. My eyes darted to the hallway. The guest room loomed like a black mouth. I wanted to burn it, to destroy it, to run away. But the necklace around Emily's neck clinked softly in my pocket. A reminder of the key, of access, of curiosity. The photo from the guest room haunted my mind. My face, my life, twisted into a family from a time before I existed, and I realized the house didn't care about reality. It cared about the echo of betrayal, of loss, of unfinished business. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't blink. I just listened, and it whispered again. You never should have come back. The days blurred into nights. Emily remained oblivious, her routine untouched, the necklace never leaving her neck. I stopped trying to explain the steps, the whispers, the photo. My life narrowed to the hallway, the guest room, and the lingering perfume that would not leave. One evening, I tried confronting Emily. You have to tell me the truth. About the guest room, about your mother. She stiffened. I told you everything, she said. Her voice cracked. I don't know what you mean. I wanted to shout, to grab the key and show her, but I couldn't. The house didn't allow action. It allowed observation, fear, and silence. At night, the footsteps came again. They stopped outside my door. I pressed my ear to it. The whisper was faint but distinct. You belong to us. I backed away, tripping into the hall. My heart pounded as the hallway stretched, impossibly long. The guest room door remained closed. The photo lingered in my mind, my face, my family, a past that could not exist. The necklace felt heavier around Emily's neck. The echo of her mother's rage and grief filled the house, and I knew one thing: the past never truly dies. It waits, patient, shaping reality for those who dare to return. I lie awake now, listening. The footsteps have grown bolder, nearer, circling the bed, and every time I reach for the courage to speak, the whisper slides through the darkness. You never should have come back. Some things, I've learned, are not meant to be found. The past carries weight we cannot always see. Curiosity and secrets can awaken what was meant to rest. Sometimes forgiveness is not enough, and some doors should remain closed because returning to old wounds can bring consequences far greater than regret. Mark and Jenna were the kind of couple that made everyone uncomfortable with how perfect they seemed. Cute house, coordinated outfits, Instagram posts that screamed life goals, hosting game nights and double dates. I envied them sometimes, though I knew it was shallow. They were happy, or at least, they looked happy. I was supposed to help Mark transfer data to his new phone. Nothing suspicious. He claimed he had a ton of apps, pictures, and contacts he wanted copied. But while backing it up, I noticed a hidden folder labeled asterisk, notifs off, asterisk. Curiosity got the better of me. Inside were hundreds of screenshots. Messages, deleted threads, pictures, voice memos, GPS pins marking meetups, dates and times, meticulously documented. My stomach dropped. Mark had been cheating not with one woman, not even two, but dozens. And he had been keeping a record of everything, like trophies, like some sick archive. I froze. This wasn't just a fling. It was organized, methodical. I didn't say a word. He was my brother. I figured I'd confront him privately later. Maybe help him figure out how to fix things. I didn't know how he'd react, if he knew I saw it. But the next morning changed everything. My phone buzzed nonstop, 57 missed calls, and one text that burned through me like acid. Who is she? Then another. Someone sent me everything. Screenshots, voice memos, locations, dates, times, all anonymous. I drove to their house, expecting chaos, yelling, maybe breaking furniture. Instead, Jenna sat at the kitchen table, calm as a stormless sea, 2 mugs of coffee in front of her. Her smile polite enough to hide something razor-sharp behind it. She didn't want revenge, she said. She wanted a conversation. When Mark arrived an hour later, he was oblivious. He smiled when he saw me, relief washing over his face. "Thanks for coming," he said. Like nothing had happened. Jenna didn't yell, didn't throw the screenshots at him. She just placed her mug on the table and said softly, "I forgive you." I blinked. "What?" "I forgive you. But from now on, honesty," she said. Her tone was even, almost serene. Mark slumped into a chair. Tears rolled down his face. I wanted to shake him awake, scream at him, tell him the truth of what he'd done. But Jenna's hand rested lightly on his shoulder, a silent anchor. They hugged, kissed, held hands, and for a moment, I believed in their perfection again. Maybe they could fix this, but that calm was a lie, and I should have seen it. 2 months later, Jenna vanished. No forced entry, no struggle. Her car gone, her phone, wallet, everything she could carry. Mark was asleep when it happened. The police scratched their heads. Friends called, worried. Everyone assumed she left him, or ran away. I watched the ring footage, and that's when my stomach fell. At exactly 3:11 a.m., Jenna walked out the front door, alone. No coat, no shoes, just pajamas. Her hair stuck to her damp face. She kept glancing behind her, like someone was there, whispering. Then, before stepping out of frame, she looked directly at the camera and said clearly, asterisk, it's my turn now. Asterisk. The last glimpse of her, a woman poised on the edge of something dangerous, something deliberate. Mark woke up hours later, confused. He thought she'd gone to the store, but the message had already been sent. 3 weeks later, the case went cold. Police shrugged. No leads. No motive. Mark was inconsolable, hovering at the edge of despair. I tried to help him, tried to explain that maybe she would return. But something about the calm determination in her parting words kept me awake at night. Then, one evening, my own phone buzzed. An anonymous email. No subject, Only one attachment, a video file. I hesitated before clicking. The video opened. Jenna, alive, sitting in a dimly lit room, staring straight into the camera. She smiled a slow, measured smile. Nothing joyful, everything deliberate. "You kept so many secrets from me," she whispered. Her eyes glinted, unblinking. "You kept one too." I leaned back. My hands shook. I felt my chest tighten, my pulse hammering against my ribs. Attached below was a single image. My house, taken from across the street. Last night, a chill ran down my spine. Someone was watching. Someone knew where I lived. Someone knew everything. I couldn't sleep that night. Every creak of my apartment sounded like her steps outside my door. Every shadow seemed to stretch closer. Mark refused to believe me at first. "It has to be a prank," he said. But deep down, I knew the truth. Someone or something was collecting data, keeping score. And now, the game had turned. Jenna was no longer just missing. She was active, calculating, waiting, and we were the targets. I changed my locks, bought cameras, motion sensors, alarms. It didn't matter. I felt her eyes every time I stepped outside. Every passing car, every pedestrian, felt like a potential observer. The email's timestamp haunted me. 3:11 a.m. Her hour. I tried to convince myself it was a trick, a warning, but the way she whispered in the video, deliberate pauses between words, it wasn't human malice. It was precise, premeditated. Mark didn't sleep. Every night, he checked windows, double-locked doors, shook at every buzz of his phone. I wanted to tell him we should leave town, disappear. But I couldn't explain the worst part. The video. It wasn't just a threat. It was a promise. Then, 2 nights ago, the email arrived again. No video this time. Just text. "Your folder is next." I froze. My mind raced. Could she mean the data I had seen? The screenshots? My own digital skeletons? The things I'd thought were private? A photo appeared in the attachment. My front door. My mailbox. Taken this very morning. I realized the emails weren't random. They were timed. Calculated. I couldn't tell anyone. Police would laugh. Mark was broken. Jenna, she was watching, and she knew we were watching her. And then I heard it. A soft, deliberate click outside my window. The sound of someone stepping on gravel. I didn't move. Couldn't. She had arrived. Last night, I stayed awake, hiding in the dark. My phone lay on the counter, vibrating silently with notifications I didn't dare open. Every shadow was alive. Every creak was deliberate. I could hear faint whispers in the wind, almost like her voice. Asterisk, "You kept one too." Asterisk. Hours passed. At exactly 3:11 a.m., I saw her reflection in the window, not through the glass, but behind me, in the dark. She stood silently, smiling, unblinking, in my living room. I froze. "Don't worry," she whispered. "I'm working on your folder now." The lights flickered. My heart pounded. My hands shook so violently I dropped my phone. On the screen, a picture of me, taken from the street outside, staring at my own house. I ran to the door, locked it, barricaded it. I didn't look back. Every step I took echoed against the walls, mocking me, counting me. Mark called. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Hours later, morning came. No one was there, no signs of entry. But I knew. She had been here, watching, waiting, calculating, and the folder, my secrets, would be revealed. The house was silent, too silent, but the sense of being observed remained. I couldn't stay. I couldn't leave. Jenna was no longer missing. She was present, and she was patient, and I understood the truth. Some secrets are not meant to be kept. Secrets don't just hide, they fester. Lies can be forgiven, but the truth always finds its way out. Those we trust can betray us, and those we protect may become our reckoning. Honesty isn't just about admitting mistakes, it's about preventing the echoes of those mistakes from destroying everything we hold dear.